But we're so excited to have you all here tonight to recap our 3GNY trip to Poland that was on May 11th and 19th. It's been a few weeks since our trip, and there has been a lot to digest, and is really frankly life-changing for so many of us. So we wanted to get a chance to talk about our trip, to share a trip with our 3G friends and family. And so thanks again for being here tonight. When I first heard about the 3G and Y's trip to Poland, my husband said to me, he's like, "This is your dream. You have to go on this." So it was my dream. And just a little bit about me, real quick. My name's Janie Pashman. I am the Long Island Regional Coordinator for 3GNY. I am the granddaughter of 4 Holocaust survivors. I got involved with 3GNY a few years ago. It's one of my most favorite aspects of my personal and my professional life, and just connecting with other 3Gs, commemorating my own grandparents' stories has been so meaningful to me. So we'll tell you a little bit about our trip. You'll get a chance to meet some of our participants. And mostly I want to say thank you to our 3GNY Executive Director, Dave Reckes, who made this trip happen. So Dave, if you want to just say a few words about yourself and 3GNY, and thank you again for making this trip happen for all of us.
Absolutely. Thank you, Janie. And I'm thrilled that you were able to join us on the trip. So my name is Dave Reckes, and as Janie said, I have the privilege of serving as executive director for 3GNY. I myself am a 3G, which means I am the grandchild of Holocaust survivors. In my case, all 4 of my grandparents were Holocaust survivors. My maternal grandmother, Sarah Tuller, is the one who I got to know best and whose story I know really well. Whose story I share in schools and organizations and community settings through 3GNY. And so I know many of you are familiar with 3GNY and are regulars in our programs. It's great to see so many familiar names and faces, as well as to see some people who might be new to our organization. So in brief, 3GNY is an educational organization founded by grandchildren of Holocaust survivors with the mission of educating others about the dangers of intolerance and using our family stories to do so, as well as being a supportive forum for the descendants of survivors. And so with that mission in mind, it has been a dream of ours for many, many years to take a trip with other 3Gs, and 3G stands for third generation descendant, to take a trip together to our ancestors' homelands, to the places that we have heard about, that we talk about, that we share with students about, that we know inform so much about who we are. We were incredibly grateful to partner with JDC Entwine, and they have been a tremendous partner in making this trip happen. For those who are not familiar, Entwine is a program of the American Jewish Joint Distribution Committee, or JDC, which is the world's leading global Jewish humanitarian organization. And Entwine's goal is to build a generation of young Jews who lead a life of action with global Jewish responsibility at its core. They were tremendous partners, have been tremendous partners from the very beginning of dreaming this trip, working together to develop the itinerary, the curriculum, recruiting participants, making sure we had a really great cohort to go together, and then co-leading the trip and taking care of all the logistics, all the things. And one thing that JDC Entwine really works on is providing some financial support to keep the trips affordable for young Jewish people to attend. And we had the great fortune for this particular trip that Ambassador Stuart Eisenstadt provided some additional support to help keep the cost affordable for our participants. Ambassador Eisenstadt has a long and illustrious career in U.S. Foreign Service. I'm not going to go through his whole resume, but he served as a diplomat, including representing the United States in the European Union, and currently serves as I'm not going to get the title correct, but he serves as legal counsel for the Claims Conference, helping to negotiate settlement money with Germany that is distributed to support Holocaust survivors and descendants around the world. Ambassador Eisenstadt decided to contribute to this trip in honor of his late wife, Frances C. Eisenstadt, who had committed her life to improving the lives of those in need including the disadvantaged in the US and Jews in distress around the world. And so we are incredibly grateful for Ambassador Eisenstadt and his support, and for JDC Entwine for being just incredible partners in this really life-changing journey. And so with that, I'm going to pass it back over to Janie to share a little bit about our trip.
Yes, so I'm going to share my screen. So like Dave said, let me see, I have like a little delay here. So the trip was this partnership between JDC Entwine and 3GNY. So you heard a little bit more about that. Personally, I was super grateful to be a part of this trip, not just with 3GNY, but the American Joint Distribution Committee, which is JDC, was also known as the Joint. They really helped my family, my grandparents and my parents leaving Europe. So it's just really meaningful for me to be a part of a trip now with JDC. So what did we do on our trip? There's so much. So I tried to pick out a few highlights and some pictures. Our group shared all our photos together. I think, how many do we have? Like 500 probably. So if any of you are interested, Josh says even more than 500. If you're interested in seeing more photos, we could share that with you too. But some of our highlights, we started out in Krakow. The JCC Krakow is really incredible. You can see that in the top picture here. That's us in front of the JCC in Krakow that has about 1,000 members. They host Shabbat dinners. They have a preschool, a summer camp. They work with Holocaust survivors. And one of the interesting things was they also have a Ukrainian refugee center. As many of you can imagine, there are a lot of Ukrainian refugees coming into Poland. Many of them are Jewish. And so the JCC in Krakow supports a lot of the Ukrainian Jewish refugees as well. And we just heard a lot, and this was something that was so interesting to me. I wasn't sure what to expect. What is Jewish life now in Poland? And seeing these vibrant JCCs was truly incredible. We were learning about, that obviously the Jewish population was it went from, I think I wrote down, there were about 70,000 Jews in Krakow before the war. There was about 25% of the population of Krakow was Jewish. After the war, it was just a very small fraction of that. About 85% of the Jews from Krakow were killed in the Holocaust. But now, after communism and the Ukrainian Jews who are coming back, and people just finding out, we heard a lot of stories about people finding out that they're Jewish. Just now, like people our age found out that it turns out one grandma was Jewish and she just died. Like, what does that mean? And the JCC helps people connect with their Jewish roots. We visited the Jewish Quarter and the Jewish ghetto of Krakow. Something that's interesting, that's unique to Krakow, is that the Krakow ghetto was not in the part of the city where most of the Jews lived, in Kazimierz. That when the ghetto was formed in Krakow, it was across the river and in a new part of town. A part of the city. And the bottom right picture, you could see that's the Jewish Ghetto Memorial. There's 70 chairs there, and each chair represents about 1,000 people that were brought to this area of the Jewish ghetto who were then deported. Right now, that's also being used. A lot of the chairs have memorials for the hostages in Gaza right now. So it's a really meaningful site. And we also took a cooking class. That was, we learned how to make chopped liver, among some other things. So it was a super fun night. Mixed feelings on the chopped liver itself, but we had a great time and learned a little bit more about Polish cooking. Then we went to Auschwitz and Birkenau, which is just outside of Krakow. It's obviously a very sobering day for all of us. It was super meaningful for many of us to bring pictures or documents of our grandparents that we were able to hold. You can see in the picture on the bottom, just at the gates of Auschwitz. Yeah, so one of the most meaningful moments for me, I think for a lot of us, is that we said Kaddish in memory of our grandparents, families, in memory of millions of people who were killed in the Holocaust. So just for us to be there as grandchildren of survivors. It's such a different experience. I had been to Auschwitz before, but this to me was it was just really remarkable, and yeah, just a great feeling for all of us.
Is that a man?
Um, so then after a few days in Krakow and Auschwitz area, we took a bus and we went to Warsaw. We spent quite some time at the JCC in Warsaw, which was also another incredible Jewish community center, similar to the JCC in Krakow. They host Shabbat dinners. They have a vibrant summer camp for Jewish kids. And really, they had programs for the Jewish community of all ages. So it was really we had a Shabbat dinner there. So it's really nice community at the JCC in Warsaw. We took a tour of the Warsaw Ghetto. The picture on the right is a remnant of the wall, the Warsaw Ghetto wall. And it's just kind of incredible to see how large the Warsaw Ghetto was and how much a part of Warsaw was Jewish before the war. I mean, some statistics that I didn't know about was Warsaw was 30% of the population was Jewish before the war, which is incredible. And you think about how Jewish like a city like New York City is, and New York City is only, what is it, like 11%, 10% Jewish. So having a city that was had this amazing, vibrant Jewish life before the war, just, it's hard to imagine, how the devastation of the Holocaust. Uh, some of the highlights I really thought when we were in Warsaw is that we saw the Ringelbaum archive. And I'm not sure if some of you know about this, but the Ringelbaum archive documents an underground group called the Oneg Shabbat. And so this was a group that, a secret underground group that in the Warsaw Ghetto that was documenting Jewish life. The members of the Oneg Shabbat, most of them didn't even know who the other members were because they really were worried about secrecy. And if any of them got caught, they didn't want to have to be in a position to tell on each other. So they were documenting Jewish life and then Jewish death, unfortunately, that was happening in the ghetto, and putting them into milk cans that they buried underground. Most of these documents were found after the war, and the Ringelbaum archive has these milk cans and has the documents that you can read about people's lives. It's incredible. I mean, I feel like I probably could have been there for 5 days. And I believe one milk can is still missing. There's still one that they're still looking for that was never found. And another one of the most incredible museums I've been to is the Poland Museum. And the Poland Museum, again, like we had a few hours there. I think we all could have spent many more hours there because there's so much to learn. It showed us the history of Jewish life in Poland. So Jews have lived in Poland since the Middle Ages, been in, 800 years ago. Jews were welcomed into Poland. And so just to see how, again, like the vibrancy of life is something that I never really thought about. We think about, so many times we think about Poland and we just think about Jews during the Holocaust, but like for hundreds of years, Jews living across Poland, it really is almost like a Jewish homeland in Europe. So seeing the museum and just getting that history that I didn't personally know, and I think many of us didn't know, was really interesting. It's also like interactive and great museum for us. And then yeah, we were in Warsaw over Shabbat, so we had you could see on the bottom left, I think that was
Please be quiet. I'm watching.
So we had Shabbat services in Warsaw, and we also, the bottom left photo shows our Havdalah service. And then our last full day, we went to Lodz, which I think officially is pronounced Łódź. It's hard for me to say, which Lodz had one of the largest Jewish communities before the war. That was also about, I think, over 30% Jewish. We learned that there's actually a prestigious film school in Lodz that I believe is still there today, but there's a walk of fame even with stars, and many Jewish, like early Jewish Hollywood filmmakers who are from Poland, like they went to this film school in Lodz, or they studied in Lodz. So that was really neat to see the, like, it's like their Hollywood walk of fame with Roman Polanski and, you know, Jewish filmmaker. I can't remember any of the other ones, but we recognize some of their names. So Lodz was, I'm sure many of you on this Zoom call tonight have relatives that are from Lodz. There's really a vibrant Jewish community. We went to the Lodz Cemetery, which I found out was it's the largest Jewish cemetery in all of Europe. That's a picture on the bottom left, a photo of the cemetery. It's huge, and actually during the war, the cemetery was part of the Lodz ghetto. So aside from the gravestones that are there pre-war, it is a mass burial site for Jews that were in the Lodz ghetto and were killed during the war. From the Lodz ghetto, Jews were sent to camps from the Radagast train station. And that's the photo that you see in the middle here. It's now a memorial site. And so these are some of the camps that the Jews from the Lodz ghetto were sent to. So I think this train station just became a memorial site fairly recently, I think about 20 years ago or so. They have an original car from the time, like a cattle car that was used. You know, there was a lot to see in Lodz. We took a tour of the bottom right shows a picture of us just on a tour of Lodz today. You know, just another super, you know, interesting city where you really see the Jewish influence on the city even still today. And aside from the historical sites we talked about, we had some really great meetings. Part of our trip was not just to see the history of Jewish life and Jewish life during the Holocaust, but just to meet people who are living in Jewish people who are living in Poland today, and how like what is Jewish life in Poland like. We loved meeting our influencer Miriam Singer. That's a picture on the right. Miriam is a social media influencer, and she's an author. She wrote a book in Polish called Jewess, which explores Jewish traditions in Poland. She's also a 3G granddaughter of Holocaust survivors, and she's modern Orthodox, and she likes to challenge misconceptions about what it's like to be Jewish in Poland. So I would love for her book to be translated into English, but she speaks English very well, and I'd love to bring her here to talk to us, because she was actually really neat. She has like I said, she's modern Orthodox and has a family that she's raising in Krakow. We met Holocaust survivor Pani Zosha. That's the photo on the bottom. And just to see a Holocaust survivor who's still living in Krakow, she has never left Poland. She's still very involved in the Jewish community. She sings at the JCC. She teaches, attends programs. So we loved Pani Zosha. We also met with students from Hillel Krakow. So the Hillel in Poland, it's different from Hillel in the US in that it's not tied to a specific university, but it's more of a program for young Jewish adults, and just exploring Jewish life. Like I said, many young people are just now finding out that they have some Jewish ancestry. So Hillel helps them to learn a little bit more about what that means and what is Judaism. And we met with the director of JDC Poland, who talked to us a little bit more about what JDC is doing in Poland and Jewish life there. One interesting thing she said, she happens to also be the director of JDC Scandinavia. And she told us, you know, she feels like Jews feel pretty safe and are doing pretty well in Poland. In Scandinavia, she felt like that is a pretty scary and dangerous situation for many of the Jews living in, you know, Sweden, Norway. So, you know, it was hard to hear, but she has an interesting job that she actually does both Poland and Scandinavia JDC programs. And I know I've been talking a lot. I promise you'll hear from other people soon, but the last meeting that was really interesting was with the Forum for Dialogue. And this is the oldest Polish nonprofit organization that's dedicated to improving Polish-Jewish relations. So they have really amazing programs. And yeah, it's just great to see that it's a a new Jewish vibrancy is happening in Poland, and that's really one of the key takeaways that I saw from it. It's not the it's not all the it does have this horrific past, and but we can see that Jews do have a future in Poland, and that was really great for us to see. And we had some fun. We had created great friendships. We have a WhatsApp group that has about 100 messages a day. It's really great to connect with people in this way. So we did have fun amidst all the deep conversations and learning about history. We had a lot of fun. And just wanted to share, I think this is the first time most of you are seeing this, a premiere of this video that Entwine put together through our trip chair, Lauren. So you can hear from some of the participants in their own words, and then we'll hear from some of the participants live just after this. The audio will start in just a second.
Being on this trip with 3GNY descendants and other people who had family who survived the Holocaust has given me an incredibly unique perspective, not only as a Jew to retrace the steps of my ancestors, but to see my peers envision their family and what they went through on such a personal level has meant the world to me. And I don't take for granted that this unique experience is entirely different than it would have been if I traveled here on my own.
This intricate bond that we all have, just being Jewish, created an environment for us to see our history and be able to process and take it all in and share a moment together that you wouldn't think you'd be able to do with complete strangers.
What I wasn't expecting was to see the concentration camp where my grandmother was. And that was listed there. And this whole time my grandma was German, and this whole time I haven't really seen anything. Like, she was a German survivor of the Holocaust, my grandfather from Poland, and I haven't seen anything related to her this whole trip, really, truly, except for seeing her father's name in the Book of Life. And to see that, I'm like, was she here? I thought she took a boat. Did she come through here? I have no idea.
To look around and to not only experience it through my eyes, but of the group dynamic, to hear everyone else's stories, to be able to share mine, to hear the differences, to hear the similarities, has enriched my time here in Poland more than I could have ever expected.
So you heard a lot from me and a little bit from in the video you just saw, and I just want to introduce Jeremy Frisch, Rebecca Weintraub, and Josh Wortman to share a little bit about what the trip has meant to them. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. So hopefully you can see Josh and Jeremy and Rebecca. And yeah, just want to you all to quickly introduce yourselves. If you could just tell us your name, where you live, and what motivated you to go on this trip, and what's maybe one quick takeaway from the trip that you want to share. Josh, you can go first.
Oh, hi guys. Thank you very much, Jenny, for your presentation and reminding me of all the facts about different things we saw, which I'm not as good at retaining the detail as you are. So this is a nice refresher.
Oh, I wasn't able to retain. I had to like go back. I looked some stuff up. It wasn't all still in my head.
Well, now we have it now we have it recorded. So wonderful. Thanks. I'm from San Diego, California, and I am the grandchild of Holocaust survivors. On my mother's side, my grandma and my grandfather who were orphaned and survived without their parents and some of their family or all of their family, depending on which side. And so I was, you know, choosing to go on this trip is not an easy decision, not something to take lightly. It's you kind of have to talk yourself into it. You know, you get this email, oh, you can go to Poland on a Holocaust memorial trip, and you're like, is that really what I want to do with my time? And then you realize it is. You have to talk yourself into it, but then you realize it's something that's important to me. It's an opportunity to honor my family, to understand in a more deep and intimate way, to be an ambassador for my family. I think the fire alarm's going off in the building. And then so for those reasons, pardon me. Okay, we'll just let that go.
All right, well, if you need to evacuate, we'll understand.
No, disregard. It's a disregard the fire alarm. Okay.
Did that happen to us in Krakow? I think we had a fire alarm experience.
Yep.
So you have to talk yourself into it, but you realize it's good to go to understand your family's history, to honor them. Also, a lot of young people get a chance to go to a program called March of the Living. So like recognizing I never got to do that, like it's all this pent up hope and interest and I don't know, yeah, curiosity. So those are the motivations, but there's also the positive motivations. It's going to be an adventure, and I haven't traveled in a while, and it's hard to organize a trip. And here's one organized for you. So between the hope to honor your family and connect and understand, plus the idea that I'm going to travel on an organized trip, and then maybe I'll meet some nice people along the way. Those are the reasons I signed up.
Thanks,
Josh. What's one thing that's been sticking with you since getting back? What's one thing that you've taken away?
Okay. There's like three, but I'll try and do this quicker. But the three things I noted are, one, there's more than just like there's people who care. And it's like this cohort of us, 22 of us, I think we're 22. We all deeply care. There's more. I can talk about these issues and I'm not talking to a wall. There's people to bounce ideas off of. And it's really nice to find my tribe, my group, people who are interested in this topic. So people care. The other one is, what did I learn about Poland's histories in World War II is it wasn't just the Jews who suffered, the Poles suffered also really bad. And that was eye-opening that we suffered together. And of course, the Jews suffered the most, or at least in the highest numbers in concentration, but the Poles also were relentlessly persecuted and killed, millions, 3 million of them, 3.5 million Jews, 3 million non-Jewish Poles. So to have empathy for them and their situation, and as usually it was the Poles who were killed were the political dissidents and the ones who stood up against the Nazi regime, and there were millions of them. So that's an important thing to hold in context. And maybe the third thing is that today what we saw in contrast to the horrors of the past is that today's Poland is a promising place to be Jewish, and we can elaborate on that. But we saw a vibrant, growing Jewish life and warm, welcoming people who were curious about us and accept and embrace Judaism, Jewish culture in their life, in their society. And these are not the non-Jews I'm speaking of. So those are three takeaways.
Thanks. I think we'll have a couple other questions for you, Josh, but I just want to go to Jeremy. And Jeremy, if you want to just quickly introduce yourself, where you're from, why you came on the trip, and a key takeaway.
Yeah, of course. Hi, I'm Jeremy. I am currently living in Washington, D.C. I'm originally from Chicago. One of the reasons I wanted to go on this trip is I'm a Jewish professional. I work at the Jewish Federation of Greater Washington. I'm an associate director of donor engagement, and my main focus is on next gen. And so JDC and federations have really, really strong partnerships. And to be able to see the work and incredible impact that my community and the federation system and JDC has in Poland is unbelievably powerful. What Janie talked about when it came to the Ukrainian distribution center, be able to interact with people from Hillel Krakow, be able to see this incredible work that they're doing is unbelievably powerful. The the other reason is personal. So unlike many people on the trip who are 3G 3Gers, I guess you guys can call yourselves. I like to call myself a 3G ally. Um, but anyways, I don't identify as 3G mostly because my great grandpa or my family aren't actual survivors. However, my great grandparents fled Poland, and all the family that they left behind, parents, grandparents, nieces, nephews, siblings, all perished in the Holocaust. And so part of it was to be able to kind of build that familial connection that I've always really been driven towards and have sought out. And so those were kind of my two main motivations as to why I wanted to go on this trip. And I would say the main takeaway for me, or one takeaway from the trip, is the power of community that we were able to build as a group. Many people have talked about like WhatsApp and us still like people connecting. It is really unbelievably powerful, meaningful that we've really made an intentional decision to stay in touch with each other, to have lively discussions with each other. Both this was like during the trip, but also after, like post the trip as well. I know as like a Jewish professional, it is one's dreams to be able to have people after a meaningful gathering or connection or mission like this to be able to still 2 months later be with each other and still connect. And so I think that's something that's really powerful, just shows the meaning of having such a incredible experience together and how that can really shape one's Jewish life and journey. And so, yeah, really excited to talk more later on, but I'll pass it back to Jeannie.
Thanks, Jen.
Jeremy, so thank you, first of all, Jeremy. And I want to jump in because one of the standout moments for me happened a couple days after we returned. And folks on the call, if you think about what was happening in this country in May, it was not a great time for Jewish Americans. And we returned from our trip, and within a matter of days was the horrific shooting outside of the museum in DC. Our WhatsApp group from this trip was already very active, and there were, fun conversations of remembering things from the trip. There were talks about like, what TV shows are you watching? What books should you read? What like silly things are going on? And in the middle of that, the WhatsApp group became a really powerful support system for all of us. And there were several messages going back and forth about people who had direct connections to the victims and to other people who were at the museum, about personal fears, what it means to be Jewish in America today, what it means to be Jewish in Poland today. And a couple comments from participants in that chat about how grateful they were to have this group to help process that really difficult and scary moment. And then to also watch that happening in the middle of conversations about what Netflix series we should watch next, and what the best recipe is for chopped liver. And I think that that's kind of like a perfect microcosm of what it means to be a 3G, but also what it means to be a Jewish adult in this world right now, and the importance of finding that meaning and connection with people with shared experience and shared background and that kind of relationship together. I know that has been something that I have really treasured since joining 3GNY, and this trip in particular has created a bond that has, I think, supported and sustained a lot of us in that way.
Yeah. Thanks, Dave. So I want to get to Rebecca. Rebecca, if you want to just briefly introduce yourself and also tell us where you're from and what motivated you to come on this trip and any key takeaways.
Hi, everyone. I'm Rebecca. I live in New York City. The reason my motivation for coming on this trip was twofold. The first being personal. Obviously, I have two grandparents who were Holocaust survivors. My grandfather was from Poland, my grandmother was from Germany, but all her time in the camps, most of her Holocaust experience was in Poland. And I, growing up, it was very much, you know, I can't speak for everybody's families, but a lot of it was, we don't go to Germany, we don't go to Poland, we don't buy Volkswagen, we don't do this. And I'd done a similar trip to Germany with Germany Close Up in 2017. It was mostly my motivation to go. And for this too is, you know, I hear a lot of what other people are saying about going to Germany and going to Poland. And I wanted to form my own opinion and not have other people speaking and telling me what I should think or what I should feel about it. I wanted to go to experience it myself. I wanted to go to the place where my grandfather lived peacefully for many, many years until he wasn't able to anymore, you know, and that was my biggest personal motivation, was to really figure out what it was that I felt about Poland. And my second motivation is that I'm a volunteer for 3GNY, have been since 2019, but I also work for JDC, not for Entwine, but I work in the archives. And, you know, for me, I see a lot of things on paper. I see a lot of things about Poland on paper, and I don't often get to see these things in person. It's not something I get to do. So to be able to go to Warsaw, to Krakow, and see all these things that I've read about for years now since I started at JDC is an immensely rewarding experience. I feel like I was in a unique position as both a volunteer for one organization and an employee of another, to experience this in really a quite unique kind of way. As far as a takeaway, for me, it is like a lot of what's already been, you know, in addition to what's already been said, I would say the resilience of the Jewish community was so, it was just there in your face, both in Krakow, both in Warsaw, to see to see people who are choosing to be Jewish. I was born into it. I grew up my whole life knowing this, and to see people choosing to do this, it's especially after the horrors of what happened there, is just so beautiful and so wonderful. So to me, that resilience of us as a people, and to have people choosing to be a part of this community is so wonderful.
Thanks so much, Rebecca. Actually, I wanted to ask you also about, you started to talk about this in that video that we just shared from Entwine, like about a specific moment that you feel like that brought you a little bit closer to your grandparents. If you want to talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, sure. So there were kind of two. The first being in that video, what I was referencing was the train station, the Radagast train station. If anyone recalls, or maybe you don't, but one of the kind of tombstone looking slabs had the camp Stutthof written on it. And that was one of the camps that my grandma was in. She grew up in East Prussia, was in Germany, German upbringing. And in all the time that I had been, and she's also the person, the grandparent I speak about in 3GNY when I go into classrooms, but I'd never really been anywhere, like any of the camps, none of the camps that we went, you know, she wasn't in Auschwitz, she wasn't anywhere else. And I didn't really see a lot of like signs of her throughout our trip to Poland. So this was literally our last day of the trip. And I'm standing there in this train station and I see Stutthof, and that was the second camp that she was in. And I don't know what it was about that moment, seeing it so starkly, even though I doubt she came through there because she was coming from Latvia, of all places. It still did something. It set something off. I stood there. It was raining. I had my umbrella and I stood there sobbing in front of this big memorial that just said Stutthof on it, nothing else. And it just hit me. In all this time and all those days, this was really the first time I saw my grandmother on this trip. And it was just very powerful. And I'm very grateful to all of the people who came and made sure I was okay, because I was just, you know, crying at a slab of stone, but I'm grateful for everybody who came by and made sure I was okay and doing all right. But it was a very moving moment, because it's not a name I saw at all the entire trip. So.
Thanks, Rebecca. Thanks for sharing that. So going back to Jeremy, we talked a little bit about the like Jewish life that we found in Poland. What can you think of any moments that you felt especially inspired or hopeful about the future of Jewish life in Poland?
Yeah. Um, there was a few, and I'll narrow it down to like two or one big one, but really it's two. Um, the first one, and I feel like everyone's gonna know exactly, at least people on the trip, everyone's gonna know what I'm about to say, but Hillel Krakow. I was obsessed with the students, maybe too obsessed. No, but out of all seriousness, to have it, what I thought was inspiring in and of itself is the fact that you have a Jewish organization like Hillel International. What Janie was saying was it doesn't operate like a similar Hillel where it's just for college students. It's for people 18 to 30, and it's really it's meeting the Jewish community in Krakow, like where it's at, which is there's not just students, it's all young people, and it's providing people the space. Yes, it's Ukrainian refugees. Yes, it's Polish people maybe that grew up Jewish. Yes, it's Israelis, but it's also creating the space for Polish people that grew up Catholic, that did not grow up Jewish, to who found out that they were Jewish later in life, to provide them with the space and opportunity to connect with their Jewish identity, to explore it. And we are meeting people that are choosing to be Jewish in Poland. Like, I'm getting goosebumps just saying that right now. Um, in Poland, of all places, and so like how inspiring it is to be able to talk with these people that are active and that like 2 years ago did nothing and are, sitting Seder and talking with the, local Holocaust survivor or whatever. Like they're just super, super active. And so I thought that was so inspiring. And it's not just like a few people. We're talking over 200 people in Krakow alone. There are thousands and hundreds of thousands, or not hundreds of thousands. There's hundreds in Warsaw as well. And so the other thing I also really wanted to mention is that it's a young community and it's actually growing. We hear about the doom and gloom of Jewish communities in the diaspora, I feel like a lot of times, and we've heard that in Poland it's growing. Yeah, of course, people, it's an older population and etc. But like it's growing because we have organizations like Hello International, like JDC that are providing Jewish life, providing the spaces for young people to explore their Jewish identity, for people who are finding out their Judaism, and it's so unbelievably inspiring. And so that I feel like is my main um, something that like really, really inspired me about like Jewish life, and that is something that's, I'm like taking away from.
Jeremy, just to add to that a little bit, something that I know you and I talked about on the trip and several other participants, we had a few or one Hillel International staff person on the trip, another person who was about to start a job with Hillel. We have JCC professionals on the trip. And so as Jewish professionals, but also just as Jewish engaged people in American Jewish communities, we had several conversations about the difference between, for many of us in the United States, growing up Jewish, doing things Jewishly, we do because we're told we should, or we have to, or it's just the way things are, right? And so you do them, some of us do them or have done them in our lives just because that's what we're supposed to do. And to be in a place where just about everybody who was acting with and on their Jewishness was doing so because they were actively choosing to do so was really inspiring. And I'm with you, Jeremy, that's something I've brought home with me of like being Jewish, yes, is something that some of us are born with and born into. It's also something that we have the ability to choose every day to make an important part of our life and to choose how to do that. And that was really powerful.
One other thing, if you let me, just really quick, that also I will always remember and really inspired me was the first day, and I thought it set the tone of the trip really well, was hearing from the director of JCC Krakow. And long story short, his grandparents, he's not Jewish, and his grandparents were Shabbos goys before the Holocaust. And later in life, his grandparents told the story about how they were Shabbos goys and how they had a lot of Jewish neighbors, and that kind of ended up inspiring him to look more into the Jewish past, Jewish culture, and he ends up becoming the director of a very large, thriving JCC, which was in Krakow, and he helped start it. And one of the things that just was so inspiring to me, why I keep thinking about this, is he talks a lot about how Polish history would not be Polish history without Jewish history. That was like a famous line that I took. And also how Poland is inherently, there's something inherently Jewish about Poland. And we saw that countlessly throughout the trip, whether that's the food. Like, I did not realize how much Jewish food is in everyday Polish cuisine. And then about, like, Janie talked about in Loge of all these like Jewish artists and the culture, and just like how it really is truly inherently Jewish. And so that is something that I think about, is both the fact that we have somewhat like the Jewish culture, but also the fact that there's all these incredible allies in the Jewish community that are not Jewish, that are wanting to preserve Jewish culture and continue to lift up Jewish people in Poland. So that's just something else that also really I continue to think about, and really, really inspired me about the Jewish community.
Thanks, Jeremy. I came back away with similar thoughts also, and how many non-Jewish people work at the JCCs, work in, the Jewish museums, and how much they, like you said, like realize the importance of Jewish contributions to Polish life. So thanks for sharing that. I have another question for Josh, but also want to say if anyone has any questions for any of us or any of the other participants on the trip, just put them in the chat and we'll get to them in a couple of minutes. But Josh, I want to ask you, because you, I know, travel all over the world. You've been to many places. You could have done this trip on your own or with any other group. Like, what do you feel like made it special that you were able to do this trip with a Jewish 3G cohort?
Thank you for that question. Yeah, that is quite funny. I do travel versatility all over the world. It turns out and I actually contemplated spending time alone in Poland, and I ended up not doing that. I ended up traveling actually with Dave and another trip participant, Ben and Jordan, and we had 4 of us. We continued on after the organized part of the trip. But to that point, what was special about traveling with everyone, I really found my tribe. Like, I didn't have to if I had traveling with these people, if I was having an emotional experience, I didn't have to validate the people around me. I had a support group who completely understood and embraced me in my what I was processing, what I was experiencing, people to bounce ideas off of, people to listen and hear me and vent with. And then I also got to hear the perspectives of others. So it turned out it was really nice to do this trip with other people who had the same intentionality, goals, openness, curiosities, and then be able to share those intimate and painful and emotional moments with, and also the joy. And you saw in the photos during the presentation, there was so much heavy sights and so much heavy history, but all the photos were, almost all the photos were smiling, and that was really the dynamic. We experienced and deeply, painfully experienced these sites and these memorials, and we seeped ourselves in the way we were heavy-hearted, but we also carried each other and had tremendous joy and experience together. So we were able to juxtapose those two things and just have a very intense, wonderful bonding 7-day experience together.
Thanks, Josh. Yeah, I think the same thing, like, but when there's so much I was thinking about preparing for this trip, and like, I am a super emotional person. I'm very interested in my family's Holocaust history and Holocaust history in general, but like, I wasn't thinking about the relationships that would form on this trip, and it's been incredible. And just like you said before, like seeing everyone here on the Zoom, I hope we can see each other in person soon. But yeah, it's amazing to have this community now. So it's 7:52, and I don't want to take too much more time, but like I said, if you have any questions, if you want to put in the chat, or if there's anyone else who went on the trip, who wants to share a moment or something special that you took away from our trip, feel free to unmute yourself, raise a hand.
See a bunch of you in the gallery there. And so feel free to either raise your hand or just unmute. We'd love to hear from some of the other trip participants, and I can pin you up on the screen so we can all see what it meant to you to travel and have this experience together.
Sure, I unmuted myself. Hi, I'm Catherine Fishman. I'm a 3G as well, living in New York. But I joined this trip because I had just finished my 3G teaching education class with Rebecca, actually, before I applied on this trip. I am the granddaughter of 2 Holocaust survivors. And it's something, as we said, we've always known that we're grandchildren of survivors. And I think we've always known that, and we've always carried that with us. But now more than ever, with the changing tide of the world, it means that much more. We are the ones to carry on their stories. We are the ones that have to make sure that this is never forgotten, that how they lived, how they survived, that we are the ones that will continue this on for the generations to come. And so I last minute applied to the trip and didn't know what I was getting myself into. And it was probably one of the greatest experiences of my life, and formed amazing bonds with people I would never have met otherwise. And it was really just one big group support system the entire time we were there. And I don't think you could ever experience that unless you're with a group that has so much under basic understanding of each other. And for us, that was just being Jewish. It just bonded us off the bat. And so, yeah, so thank you, Dave. Thank you, Entwine. Thank you.
Thanks, Kat. It's good to see you.
Hi.
And so there are a couple of questions in the chat that are somewhat related. So I'm going to read them out loud, and then anyone feel free to answer. The first was if we experienced any anti-Semitism directed at our group. And then a kind of corollary question to that was, based on our trip experiences and what we saw in Poland, was there any insight on how anti-Semitism can be addressed or combated in America? Anyone want to try to field those questions?
I can say some. I actually asked a few of the Jews we met in Poland. Sorry, I'm Katie Weiser. I was a trip participant, and I had asked in Poland when we were speaking with some of the Jews who we met there in Krakow, actually. I asked them about anti-Semitism and if they had experienced it. I had been shocked to go into an antique shop across the street from our hotel and find cigarette lighters and other paraphernalia from the concentration camps. So I didn't know what to expect. And everyone I asked had the same response. They feel safe in Poland as Jews, which shocked me because my grandfather never went back to Poland, and my father has no desire to go to Poland. So hearing this was really heartening. What I did hear from what one person said, which I found interesting, was there was no overt anti-Semitism. There was no violence. People might be anti-Semitic. Some people might have anti-Semitic attitudes, but they don't act on it. And that's different than what I'm seeing here in New York City.
Yeah. Katie,
I want to, oh, sorry. It's great to see you. I wanted to add that our trip coincided with the run up to the first round of elections in the Polish, for the Polish president. And so we were seeing campaign signs everywhere. If you turned on the TV at night, you'd see campaign videos and interviews and things like that. And several of the people we met with talked about the presidential election and what the main candidates. And we were there during the first round of elections. They have a system where they had 13 candidates. And so then a runoff happened about a month later. And we heard a lot of hope and optimism for one candidate, and concern and fear about another candidate, specifically as it related to Jewish life in Poland. Unfortunately, the person who we heard the most about with fear and trepidation is the candidate that won, narrowly, but won the election. And so I think this, what Katie mentioned, the kind of like just under the surface anti-Semitism that certainly still exists, even if thankfully so far it has not been more overt and violent outwardly in recent times. I think there's a lot of concern among the people that we met with and that we talked with who live there, Jewish people and others who are, allies of the Jewish community, that they're hoping that this isn't the harbinger of things to change in that direction. But it's a reminder that there's a lot of work that we have to do here in our country and that we have to do across the globe to support the Jewish people.
To the idea that what does America have to learn from Poland, or how are the underlying dynamics different? I mean, I might speculate that in Poland, the Jewish population is not yet powerful and if leading the economy, or is in comparison to America. So to some extent, we don't appear as threatening of a population or an identity in Poland yet as America. So it is actually interesting to speculate as the Jews increase in population and economic prosperity in Poland, how that alone might impact how people feel about them. But as of now, they're just a small, growing, burgeoning small population. So they're not, I don't think they're really an economic powerhouse or threat.
Yeah. And I just want to add to what you all are saying. Like, I know we've seen some instances of anti-Semitic incidents and behavior in Poland in recent weeks. But while we were there, I personally didn't experience any overt anti-Semitism. And at both JCCs, they had told us that they display Israeli flags, they displayed hostage posters, and they hadn't had a single incident of any anything done to the hostage posters, like as opposed to what happens in New York City with hostage posters. So they felt like it was very safe. And unfortunately, like Dave said, we don't know what's to come with this new government, but when I left Poland, I felt the same way I think as most of us did, of just feeling really felt like Poland is a safe place for Jews and hopefully a new vibrant Jewish life.
When we met with the woman who works for the Forum for Dialogue, which, if you recall, Janie mentioned is the largest and oldest organization specifically aimed at improving Jewish and non-Jewish Polish relations. And they work primarily with non-Jewish teachers and community members in small towns and villages throughout the country, and help connect them with Jewish people from Poland and from the diaspora, and to help them learn about the Jewish history and culture of their specific town. And one of the things that I loved about how this woman was describing her work and the volunteers that she works with, who again are non-Jewish Poles who recognize the Jewish history in their hometown and want to do something to elevate it and celebrate it and bring it back into the conversation. And I forget the exact term she used, but she kind of was like, these are the misfits. These are the crazy people. These are the renegades. I love working with them because they're so full of energy and love and hope. And even when the people in their town might not even know what that means and might have preconceptions about Jewish people or about Jewish history, these are the people out there on the front lines who want to bring Judaism back into the conversation in Poland. And there's something really powerful that spoke to me, again, to that question of what we can bring back that we saw into the United States and into fighting anti-Semitism here, was this enthusiasm about finding the allies and finding the people who are excited about celebrating Jewish culture and celebrating the richness and diversity of our people and our history and our place in our society. finding those people, holding on to them, celebrating with them, doing exciting things with them, trying new things, and building bridges through, starting with small scale one-on-one, and using that as a way to really build community-wide and national scale support for Jewish history and culture and people. So that connection has really stayed with me as well.
Yeah. Actually, someone had a question in the chat about how we might change the trip if it was a mixed group of Jewish and non-Jewish participants. I don't know, it's interesting. I don't know that it would change the trip. I think it might change the dynamic of the participants, but I actually think it needs to happen because all of us, we created this great bond, and I loved having us have this similar background. But Dave, to your point, I think it is important that we need to reach more non-Jewish people and reach more allies and people who might not have this background and this family history, who really need to learn about the Holocaust and Jewish life. So I think that's a great idea, Deborah.
Can I jump in?
Yeah.
Sorry. Hi, everybody. It's good to see you. I'm Taryn Wortman. I am from Philadelphia. Still live in the suburbs. I am a 3G. My grandparents were all survivors, all from Poland. And that was very much a big part of why I wanted to do this trip, was that connection, that understanding what it means to be a 3G. And when we got back, I was responding in the chat a little bit, but we have a very dear family friend who is basically like a bonus aunt, I guess. All her parents' family and my grandparents, like they were all the only survivors, but her mom and my Zadie were actually from the same town, and we actually have a picture of them together at a school function before the war, which is amazing. But anyway, so this very dear family friend was a public school educator her entire career, but she was very involved in the Jewish community and especially in Holocaust education. And for over 20 years, she led groups of non-Jewish teachers to Poland and also to Prague, but mostly through Poland, talking about the Holocaust, talking about what it means to be a child of a survivor from her perspective, but actually went with one of our Monikas around when they were traveling as well. But so her participants were not Jewish, and we were talking a lot about exactly that, the differences between a child and a grandchild's experience versus somebody who's not Jewish. And she said on one of her experiences, on one of her trips, the night before the trip, it was a very Polish thing to have happen. A teacher from Texas found out from her grandmother, who was dying, that she was Jewish. So on the eve of going to Poland, she's like, wait a minute, my entire life is upended. So it really changed the meaning of the trip and the experience for her. And when she got back, she was still a teacher and doing all of these things, but she, started taking Ulpan classes and getting involved in the community. And she now heads up the Latina Studies division of their local Holocaust museum. So it's completely changed her career trajectory by going on the trip and having that experience. But anyway, I thought it was an interesting story.
Yeah, thank you, Taryn, and thanks for jumping in to say hi. It's good to see your face. And really thank you to everyone who is pinned on screen here, the participants who are here, participants who are in the background, and some who I know really wanted to be here but couldn't and are going to watch the recording. It personally, it's just really fun to get to see you all again and to recount this experience. I started, when we started talking about this trip, it was through my lens as as the executive director of 3GNY and through the professional goals, but also was really personal to me. And for years, I had not even no interest in going to Poland. I actively did not want to go. And through doing this work with 3GNY, I have gained an interest, but I was still very hesitant and skeptical right up until getting off the plane in Warsaw, or in Krakow rather. And this group was fantastic, and the people that we met were incredible. And right from that very first day that Jeremy mentioned, hearing about the long history of Jewish life in Poland, and as Janie mentioned, recognizing that for many of us, Poland is a sort of homeland and has been for a long time. And even though the last 80 years plus have not been great, that there is history and it is palpable when you're there. And I felt it, and I feel like I was transformed really the very first day, and that carried through the rest of the trip, and really through since coming home as well. So I'm incredibly grateful to all of you for joining on the trip and making this possible. Incredibly grateful to JDC Entwine and Michelle and Emily who are on this call, who did so much work behind the scenes to get us ready and make sure that we were able to have this really powerful and meaningful experience. Anna, who was our Entwine trip leader, who lives in Israel, so it's the middle of the night, so she can't be joining us tonight. But if you watch this on the recording, Anna, we miss you, we love you. And a huge thank you as well to JDC Entwine and Ambassador Eisenstadt for making this possible for all of us. And to all of you for joining us tonight and for being part of this conversation with us. I hope that this is either the first or a continuation, but we'll continue the conversation for you with 3GNY as well as with JDC and JDC Entwine. We will follow up in the coming days with the recording, as well as with some more information about upcoming events with 3GNY, how you can get in touch with us, how you can get in touch with JDC and JDC Entwine. Because as you heard today, the more that we can come together, the more that we can create these opportunities for powerful shared experience as Jews, as 3Gs, as people passionate about making the world a better place for all of us, the better off we will be together. So again, thank you. Thank you. And we wish you a great evening and the rest of your summer. We'll hopefully see you soon. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Hi, everyone.